We're going to talk about two genocides, the Holocaust and the bombing of Dresden. The first one, the Holocaust, is the term for the murder of around 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and their collaborations during the Second World War. Between 1941 and 1945, the Nazis sought to eliminate the entire Jewish community of Europe. Jews were murdered and transported to extermination camps. 6 million of the 11 million European Jews perished. The Holocaust mainly occurred in Eastern Europe, in places such as Poland and Ukraine. Then the second one is the bombing of Dresden, which from February 13 to February 15 in 1945, during the final months of the Second World War, Allied forces bombed the historic city of Dresden, located in eastern Germany. The bombing was controversial because Dresden was neither important to German wartime production nor a major industrial center, and before the massive air raid of February 1945, it had not suffered a major Allied attack. February 15, the city was a smoldering ruin and an unknown number of civilians, estimated between 22,700 to 25,000, were dead. Next up, I'm going to leave you to my fellow classmates who are going to explain more detail each genocide.
It all happened between 1930s and 1940s when Hitler came to power. He used to say that the aim of Jews was the complete destruction of Germany and the spirit of revolution. In 1933, Jews were excluded from the civil. In 1938, Jewish homes service and from schools and universities. In 1935, Jews could no longer be citizens. Marriage and sexual relationships between Jews and Aryans were outlawed. In 1942, death camps were built, and leading Nazi decided on the final solution of Jews. Even though the Nazis were very strong, many people bravely resisted them. As Jews were rounded up all over Europe, some people managed to escape. They sometimes formed resistance groups, blowing up railway lines and attacking Nazi soldiers. In May 1943, the Jews in Warsaw Ghetto fought bravely when Nazi troops were sent to destroy the ghetto. Also, in 1943, a revolt in one of the camps was so serious that the Nazis were forced to close the camp and destroy all the buildings.
Moving to the bombing of Dresden, this was a British-American aerial bombing attack on the city of Dresden, the capital of the German state of Saxony during World War II. In 4 raids between the 13th and 15th of February of 1945, heavy bombers of the British Royal Air Force and of the United States Army Air Forces dropped high explosive bombs and incendiary devices on the city. But why was Dresden chosen as a target? First of all, in an effort to force a surrender, the Dresden bombing was intended to terrorize the civilian population locally and nationwide, and it certainly had that effect. Secondly, the city was in Nazi Germany, and for this reason, it was a legitimate target for attack as the Allies were at war with Nazi Germany. And it was also a rail base to send troops to the war front with the Russians, so this way bombing Dresden might help the Russians' war effort. And lastly, though the Russians were allies, Churchill and Roosevelt had already decided that Stalin would be a major problem after the end of the war. Therefore, Dresden was bombed to show the Russians the power of the Allies and to act as a warning to them not to stray from the agreements they had made at the war.
Regarding to compare the bombarding of Dresden with the Holocaust, what we have to say is that one is a consequence from another, because the bombarding of Dresden happened in the Second World War, which began with the Holocaust. So I think that the bombarding of Dresden is a consequence from the Holocaust. So I think that both are terrible and awful and very destructive and horrible, but I think that Germany has to do with the bombarding of Dresden. I say that Germany is a victim of that, but also have a little fault in that because they started the Second World War and